Like the landing craft, the landing ship could be adapted for a variety of roles, but its principal function was the transportation of troops and tanks directly from their port of embarkation to the beachhead. Landing ships had only entered service in 1943, but had already demonstrated their value during the invasions of Sicily and Italy. On D-Day, over 300 of these vessels would be available. They would be the workhorses of beachhead reinforcement and supply. The American M4, or Sherman as it was known in Britain, began coming off the production lines in March 1942 and quickly became the standard battle tank in both the American and British armies. Although poorly armed in comparison to German tanks, the M4 was cheap and easy to manufacture, and vast numbers were available for the invasion. Variants included the Sherman Firefly, an upgunned M4 designed for tank duels. The duplex drive had a waterproofed hull and was equipped with a flotation screen and propeller for amphibious assault. M4s were also modified as engineering vehicles for beach or minefield clearance. In coastal areas, the final training of assault troops was underway. As D-Day approached, the exercises were made more complex and realistic. Beachhead management and control assumed greater importance. Assault parties were trained to engage pillboxes and bunkers, and naval shore parties to coordinate fire support. This phase of the battle would almost certainly be the most crucial, and many of the men who would land with the initial wave were veterans of several campaigns. Others were regular army and had been training and preparing for years, but of those in the following waves, the vast majority had yet to be tested in action. Their contribution might prove to be equally crucial. No one could fully anticipate the course of the battle to come. Divisions might be fed into an advance or thrown into a last-ditch defense of the beachhead. For these reasons, many of the follow-up forces were also trained in assault landings, in attack and defense, in hand-to-hand combat, and in the techniques of assaulting fortified positions. Among all the services, morale was high. There was a feeling of common purpose and a sense that the war in Europe was reaching its supreme climax. Official secrecy ensured that only a few knew the actual date and place of the landings, but all were aware that D-Day was imminent. All of the essential preconditions for a cross-channel attack had been met. Allied air and naval superiority was complete. The men were well trained and equipped. Many were apprehensive, but all shared a fundamental confidence in their collective ability and in the ultimate success of the enterprise. Since Stalingrad, the German army had been fighting a largely defensive war in the east. The loss in that campaign of almost 500,000 men, as well as vast quantities of equipment, gravely undermined its offensive capability. The subsequent destruction of the German forces in Africa and the war of attrition in Italy only served to further diminish this once formidable war machine. Yet neither then, nor in 1944, was there any fundamental revision of the German order of battle. Instead of reducing the number of field divisions and redeploying along a shorter and more defensible frontage, the divisions themselves were reorganized and their establishment strengths reduced from 9 to 6 battalions. Even divisions that had been utterly destroyed were reconstituted with skeleton cadre and slotted back into the order of battle. Divisional frontages remained unchanged, as did the operational demands placed upon them. This, coupled with a strategy of no withdrawal and a chronic shortage of reserves, was to place a heavy burden on fighting troops in every theatre of the conflict. In Normandy, the 7th Army was similarly composed of under-strength divisions, many of which were ill-equipped and included units unsuitable for anything other than static defence. This situation was only partly redeemed by Rommel's emphasis on fixed fortifications and the rapid deployment of armour. Even as late as 1944, the backbone of German panzer divisions remained the Mark IV battle tank. Originally designed in the 1930s as an infantry support tank, the Mark IV proved to be a superb machine, sound, reliable, and supremely versatile. From 1941, the Mark IV was given additional armour and re-equipped with successively heavier armament. The original 75mm howitzer was replaced in 1942 by a 75mm long-barreled gun. This in turn was superseded in 1943 by a longer-barreled, high-velocity weapon. Progressive improvements in armour were made possible by the superiority of the basic design. Between 1941 and 1944, protection was doubled, and despite an increase in weight of several tons, there was no significant loss of speed or manoeuvrability. The Mark IV also proved eminently suited to field refits, and many machines were upgraded in service. The Mark V, or Panther, first appeared in 1943. Originally inspired by the superlative Soviet T-34, it was designed and produced from prototype in less than a year. Early production Panthers suffered from a number of design defects and proved unreliable in service, but when these faults were corrected, the tank quickly established itself as a fearsome fighting machine. With heavy, sloping armour and a powerful 75mm gun, the Panther was more than a match for any Allied tank. By 1944, the Panther was beginning to replace the aging Mark IV as the main battle tank in service with the Wehrmacht. The Mark VI, or Tiger tank, was available only in small numbers. These were normally grouped in independent tank battalions, attached to division or corps. Although the Tiger was the most heavily armoured and powerfully gunned